Hi guys, ShiggitayMedia here, and I know I normally post techie things like tutorials and computery things, but today I thought it would be fun to comment on a video of things that 11 things previous generations will never understand. I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 1984, so I grew up the last half of the 80s, all throughout the 90s to now, and the mid 2000s. I guess the 2010s, if you want to call it that. And I remember a lot of this stuff, and I find some of what this video is going over to be inaccurate. And no offense to the great George Takei, but some of these things are inaccurate, but the video itself is well put together. The soundtrack, the song they use is pretty cool. It's looping, of course, because the song is shorter than what the video clip is, but yeah, I'm going to be commenting on this. I took some notes. Here are the notes I took. And let's get going here. The first topic is going to be floppy disks, and I'll tell you my opinions on those, based on how they're being depicted here. Okay, so floppy disks. And I know you saw this little control bar here. I don't really care. I'm doing a screen capture and that's fine. So, floppy disks. The disks being shown, if I'm looking off camera, it's because I'm reading the notes I took. The disks being shown in the video aren't actually the floppy disks as the name suggests. If you want an actual floppy disk, you would need to go back to the 80s and early 90s to the Commodore 64 and Apple 1 and 2 and somewhat 3 era. And there you'll find an actual floppy disk. Now, technically, those disks that they show there, the 3.5 inch disks there, are technically still floppy disks, but they gained a hard shell and they can store more data on it and everything. Inside, the film itself is still kind of floppy, sure. But the actual floppy disk, to get like a floppy effect like this, is the 5.25 and larger. Before technology was miniaturized as much as it is today with other mediums. But those were the floppy disks, and I don't agree with that fully. But here's number 2. Okay, so yeah, Beanie Babies were very popular in the 90s. And I don't quite remember them, but I know they were popular. But at the 7-Eleven location I work at, people that know me know where it is, but I'm not going to say where it is because it's not the point of this video. But the 7-Eleven location that I work at actually has them. And they're not exactly the same size as what they show here from the 90s, but they're available again. And I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. It's interesting, not for me. I mean, I'm going to be 35 in January. It's not really my focus to collect. But it's pretty cool that they're having a resurgence. And my store I'm working at charges around $7 a piece for certain ones. So it's not all that expensive if you want to start a collection. But it's not the same as it was. You would have to go on eBay or hopefully find someone on Craigslist with ones that are still not dirty and without dogs biting at them and stuff. But yeah, that's Beanie Babies. That's accurate. So far, the only thing I find inaccurate is floppies, the floppy disks. But just you wait. There's other things that I find inaccurate. Here's number 3. Okay, so here's another inaccuracy, and I took some notes on this. It's that I wrote, the point regarding only being able to catch your favorite TV shows live or wait for a rerun is false. in as early as the mid-90s, this is just me kind of guesstimating, you could get VCRs that would allow you to program a show to record, so long as you have a VHS tape in the aforementioned VCR to record to. I used to do this all the time. I used to be a huge Nickelodeon kid back when Nickelodeon had quality content, and no offense to all you SpongeBob SquarePants and other type programming fans, other type similar fans of similar shows that came at the tail end of the 90s. But I used to remember programming my VCR on, I think it was Tuesdays and Thursdays or something, to record the classic show, of which I talk about in a different video, in a different channel. This is Shiggitay Media, that's ShiggitayVlogs, called The Secret World of Alex Mack. And I think, like I just mentioned, Tuesday and Thursdays at like 8 p.m. or something. You could program your VCR to record anything you want, as long as it's airing. Now, the only problem with that was if there's a sudden schedule change or like an urgent news broadcast or something. This just in, a dog is drowning in the Atlantic Ocean. They would, overlay it on top of your show, and that would record, and you're stuck with that, and your recording would be ruined. That's happened to me so many times. Family members as well have accidentally recorded over something that I had recorded, and yeah, it wasn't a pleasant experience for me when I wanted to go back and watch what I had thought was recorded for me. I even lost some Power Rangers recordings like that before. That was not fun for 10-year-old me. Or 11-year-old me. But yeah, that part's pretty inaccurate. And the next point is also having some inaccuracies that I'm going to touch upon after you see what their view is. Okay, not so much I got ahead of myself. Not so much an inaccuracy, but I do have a comment. Okay, so movies. Then the notes I took on the movies part here is an R. I didn't so much as rent movies from places like Blockbuster Video, but my parents would take my brother and I to rent a video game or two each weekend for several years in the 90s. It was it was fun as hell. And let me actually mute my phone because I do not want to be interrupted. This is the second time This is the second time I'm attempting to record this video, and I'm getting pretty far in now, and I do not want to screw it up. Anyway, yeah, it was pretty fun, and this is one I can agree with. That when you would go to a video store like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video or what's some other ones, FYE. Later in the 90s and early in the 2000s for your entertainment, or The Wall or Strawberries. The Wall and Strawberries are mostly for music, of which is next in the list of 11 things. But if you go to a store, whether you're renting or purchasing, and they don't have a copy of what you're looking for, yeah, you have to wait for them to get the next shipment in, or for it to become available in some other form. And that was aggravating. I remember going into Blockbuster and wanting a copy of, I don't know, let's say, Donkey Kong Country 3 for the Super Nintendo. And they didn't have it. And you had to wait for them to get for someone to return it, so you can then in turn rent it yourself. But yeah, that's an accurate point. And I do remember renting some movies. Like I remember the new releases wall. Like you would walk in and it's like, new releases! And you can pick up a copy of, I don't even remember what was new in the 90s anymore. I don't know, maybe Total Recall. The 1994 Arnold Schwarzenegger Total Recall movie. When they, released it for home video. Literally home video. Nowadays when you say home video, it's implied that it's either DVD or Blu-ray. Soon to be Blu-ray and some other format, probably. With how technology is going. But, Yeah, no, that I remember that very fondly. On to number 5, which is, I kind of got ahead of myself, it is music. Okay, I need to pause it, you know, in mid video, like in mid topic, because, all right. And the notes I took are, while I do remember Sony's Walkman, the device that's showing right now isn't misleading. Yeah, it's a Sony Walkman product, but it's a mini disc player, which came out much after the actual tapes, like analog tapes. And they're going to mention something about making a mixtape for your crush. Yep. Yeah, that's totally inaccurate. I mean, if they're talking about a mixtape for your crush, they should have shown not a mini disc player, which is already digital, I believe, but an actual tape deck. Because back in the day, we were only able to get either a tape only Walkman machine, which is literally just an audio cassette player, a portable audio cassette player, or it would sometimes have AM and FM radio, so you can listen to radio in the car, like without having to put your parents through what you listen to on the car radio. Yeah, no, that's pretty inaccurate, and that's one thing that kind of bothered me when I saw this video for the first time a few days ago. So yeah, mixtapes will not play in one of those mini disc players. Unless you have a mini disc in there, of course. But using an actual audio cassette tape in a mini disc player, that ain't gonna work. Now, on to number 6. Okay, so number 6 in this list is navigation. And I wrote in my notes, oh, how I remember either looking at a map on the road trip with my family, or printing out a map from MapQuest or Yahoo or later Google Maps. Okay, and here's a little story about that I wrote down. One time, one such online printed map led us to a path with I typoed patch, wow. Okay, let me, because it's going to bother me, given this little script I wrote. One such online printed map led us to a path with a huge rock in the middle. Ugh. Today's generation sure is spoiled with smartphones and tablets with a GPS-assisted navigation. Yeah. No, nowadays you can pick up a smartphone like my iPhone here and my mom's iPhone, which I'm repairing right now for my mom. You can just take it out and say, okay, Google, if you have like an Android device, how do I get to San Francisco, California? And it will look on the maps, and give you step-by-step, turn-by-turn directions to get to San Francisco, no matter where you are in the country, and at least in the U.S. I don't know if it works globally, but that's not the point. The point is that navigation is pretty instant now. Back in the 80s and 90s, of which, like I said, I'm guessing this video is referencing its content to, you would have to have an atlas, a book of maps that you need to look up and map out your trips. And if there's changes on the map, you have to buy a whole new map. Versus with Google Maps, it's ever changing and they can update it like that. But yeah, no, that's another thing. That's a true thing that previous generations will never understand because they have their, newfangled smartphones and other things that help them navigate much easier. And especially with a GPS or global positioning service, I believe that's what it stands for. I never thought about it because I just knew the GPS. I just know it as GPS. Global positioning system. I don't even know anymore, but I don't really care right now. This is just an off the cuff, little improv video I came up with. Yeah, everyone's so spoiled now. So, on to the next topic that this video covers, and that being phones. and phone and mobile communication. Okay, so, and I wrote, speaking of smartphones, the generations of the past will never understand what it was like to find a phone or be at home to make a phone call. Sure, cell phones started to show up in the late 1980s, but they were super thick and could injure a small animal if dropped on them. That's just a joke. That's just an exaggeration. And but I'm just trying to illustrate how heavy they were based on what you saw in the video there. And pagers were a thing, and texting was not yet a thing. So a pager, for those of you that don't know, I'm probably 9 out of 10 people watching this video know what a pager was. But a pager was a device. So let me see if I can find a prop. All right, this little numpad thing. Okay. Anyway, you have to pay for pager service. So it's like the precursor to cell phone service, like for texting, right? This is like texting to a separate device that's not your phone or tablet in some cases nowadays, right? You would get a message, and it was I don't know. Actually, it's more like it's almost like Twitter in a way. You can only do a certain amount of characters, like call me now, and you leave a number, or call now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 0. And you would call someone based on that message. Nowadays, we have texting, texting, and you could text people, and theoretically you could text people anywhere in the world. Of course, there's going to be fees and charges if it's international, but technology is there to let you text anyone in the world. Back then, if you didn't have a pager, or if you didn't have any way to get to a payphone, you have to wait at home to get a phone call. And I remember my dad was waiting for a business call at one point. He's like, I'm waiting for a phone call, don't be on the phone. And man, how times have changed. And so the next topic they talk about is cameras and taking pictures. Okay, I got too into the music there. So, taking pictures back then was kind of a chore. So, since real/practical smartphones didn't exist before 2007 with the introduction of the iPhone, pictures were taken with actual cameras. Even though digital cameras and digital photography was starting to emerge, but at a very high price to pay. Yeah, a simple digital camera in the 90s costed you easily like $1,500. Because the technology was super new, the quality based on what today's standards are was super low, but back then it was like, oh my god, it's digital. I can just delete it and take it again without taking it to a CVS or a Rite Aid pharmacy or something to get it developed. And yeah, back in those days, you had to have a point-and-shoot camera. Photo enthusiasts today still have the point-and-shoot film cameras, analog cameras, but slowly but surely, as it leads into today's world, today's generations, kids that are born in the late 90s and early 2000s, digital photography is the in thing. And it's true what they say here. This is one of the few points that I agree with. That if you take a picture and it comes out looking like crap, well, you're stuck with that picture, and you just gotta hope the next one you took looks better. So those are Stone Ages of taking pictures. Even before that, even before the era this is depicting, in the 20s and 30s, you know, it was also on film. It was a totally different technology and way of doing it. But whatever the picture was, if there was like a dog that ran into the picture while they would go like that with the flash and stuff, yeah, that would be preserved in history forever if that picture wasn't destroyed. So, picture taking has come a long way since many eons ago. So, yeah, what number are we on? Number 9? Yeah. Number 9, it talks about library books. That was a short one. All right. So the notes I took for this one are like this, or as follows. While libraries and its books still exist today, they do. Back just 20 years ago, that's a rough number, finding the book you wanted was all done via the Dewey Decimal System on paper cards and card catalogs and stuff. Yeah, that's true. I remember navigating. Wow, that's a couple of points ago. A couple of things mentions ago. I remember having to do this to find a book I needed for research projects, etc. in middle school. By the time I got to high school, the digitization of such had already started. But man, those are days I don't miss. Yes. I remember having to go through those card catalogs to find, and probably traditional, you know, more old-fashioned libraries still have this, or they have that and digital, I'm not sure. I sadly haven't set foot in the library in a while. Well, I set foot in the library before, but only to take out DVDs, not to take out a book. Sadly, I don't read much, but that's a different issue here. That's a different issue that I won't go on about here. You would have to go through a card catalog to find. I'm trying to think of a random book. Let's say The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by, I forget the author, but for example, you look up the author, you find that book, and you would find what shelf it's on, etc. Nowadays, you just go to a computer and say, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Oh, okay, it's on shelf, aisle 10, shelf 4. Or however it's phrased and set up, but you can print it out and have it on a sheet of paper if your short-term memory isn't great, or if you want to take notes on it or something. Yeah, you can still do that back then, but you had to look at the card first. And I remember having to do that, and I didn't like it. I'm so happy that it became digital as I got more accustomed to things that are digital. To things that were digital, like computers and other computerized devices that I grew up with. Okay, now, number 10, I believe is the internet? Yes. Okay, this is another one I find a slight inaccuracy with, but I don't know exactly the time period it's trying to depict. If it's trying to depict and reference the early 90s, like from 1990 to like 97 or something, or 96, yes, it's pretty accurate. But if it's trying to depict from like 1998 to 2000 to the end of the 90s into the 2000s, then it's pretty inaccurate. The inaccuracy I'm finding here, because I'm not sure what half of the 90s is, or what generation it's referring to, is like this in my notes. In the 1990s, the internet exploded all over the U.S. and the world. True, fact. But how the video depicts it only from the perspective. But how the video depicts it is only from the perspective of dial-up internet. Yes. While it's true that dial-up, with like what you saw there with the dial-up and modem sounds, all that stuff. There's some funny videos of that sound with like a face making the making funny faces at each of the sounds of that modem screeching. While dial-up was popular with America Online or AOL, of which I have another video talking about how its standalone instant messenger service that was around for years, for over 20 years, was discontinued back in December, and that's really sad. But I'll put a card right here mentioning that video, and subscribe to that channel if you enjoy that video that I'm going to link in the card. But yeah, AOL was one such service that was on dial-up. There was also Prodigy, there was CompuServe, there was Earthlink. There's so many that were popping up. And there's NetZero, as I remember that one. But if this is referencing the extremely late 90s, like 98, 99, internet service providers like Comcast and Cox Communications and so on. I'm assuming. I only know for sure Comcast was doing this. When I was in high school, in 10th grade, my 10th grade year, in 1999 or so, Comcast was offering cable internet to areas that they were able to service. And my family never got cable. We got 2 or 3 different upgrades of DSL because we only had the phone lines in our house that would work with that or something. Or we decided not to pay Comcast money. And okay, sirens, you can go away. Thank you. And we just dealt with a dial-up and then DSL until we moved out. But yeah, this is inaccurate because they're only talking about a dial-up. And my notes say this video depicts it only from the perspective of dial-up internet. As early as 1999, Comcast, at least in New England, started to offer cable internet to its customers, and it was oh so much faster than dial-up. Oh man, the day we got even our first slower but faster than dial-up DSL connection, that was cool. I was able to go on and download music however I did it. I don't remember exactly what I used back then. And it would download like that instead of, if you can understand slow motion snapping, I don't know. But that was so cool to have a faster internet connection. But yeah, the internet in the early 90s on dial-up was painful. I remember having to use it. And if you were to get a phone call on the phone line you were using to go on the internet with the information services like AOL. I had AOL for a long time. The internet connection would be severed, and you would have to reconnect. And I feel bad for you if you experienced this and you were downloading any kind of file or watching any kind of online video that was available at that point, because you'd be interrupted and it'd be really frustrating if you constantly were getting phone calls. So that was the internet back then. And now the final point that this video talks about, and this has been a fun video, guys. I appreciate you watching if you watched it this far. It talks about fast food, and I'm gonna roll it. Okay, and that's the end of that part of the video. The video that I'm commenting on, not the video yet. Alright, so fast food. What I wrote down in my notes is, this is one I can agree on 100%, because all the others I had some issue with, but this I agree with 100%. Back then, people didn't realize how bad fast food was for you. Sure, I did occasionally go to McDonald's, etc. when I was when I was a kid, back in the 1990s. But I'm sure there are families that would go out to such places many, many times a week. Super unhealthy, and I don't recommend that. I can't even read my own notes. What's going on here? Super unhealthy, and I don't recommend that even on my worst enemy. Yeah, I mean, getting sick, getting super obese, and then getting sick with like heart disease and diabetes and other things is not something I want to see anyone suffer with, even if I don't like the person personally. That's just, that's just the kind of person I am. And as it says there, so just in closing here, this is just a really casual, semi-scripted video that I've never done before. Like it says right here, do you miss any of these things? And like I said, there's a lot of inaccuracies I find with what was shown, but based on the content of what they're showing, do you miss any of these things? I miss none of it, honestly, because all that stuff was manual labor. Especially not being able to be on the internet wherever you go, like with smartphones now. Okay, I'm a little bit spoiled because I was able to be online all the time, on the go with the original iPhone when I got it. But I really don't miss much of this. I mean, I do miss the nostalgia of, like, that doesn't make any sense. I do miss and have nostalgia for recording stuff on VHS with a VCR being programmed and then getting really heartbroken when the recording would get messed up. But everything else, I'm happy, is more simple and simplified nowadays, and it's just going to get better. But right, so this is my video commenting on the 11 things previous generations will never understand, and hopefully the previous generations that this is referring to will try to understand what my generation of the 90s had to go through. Anyway, getting a little emotional here because I remembered AOL Instant Messenger dying. Oh man. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, favorite, subscribe, and share this video. And if there's any 90s kids that are watching this with me, watching this video right now, down in the comments put hashtag 90s kid and let me know, and we can reminisce about things from the 90s and maybe late 80s. If any of you remember that, if you're born in the late 80s and lived throughout the 90s too, just do that. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a great day.